So last weekend I went rock climbing for the first time since maybe high school. And at first, since I remember doing it in high school. I remember, climbing up pretty high and it not bothering me at all. Um, or I remember at least doing it, and I felt like it didn't bother me at all. And so when I get there, I'm thinking, yeah, this gonna be a breeze. That's a piece of cake. I look up at the wall, like, yeah, I feel like I've done this before. I've been, I've done some things. And plus I've been doing my pull-ups and everything, so I know I got the physical strength to, just kind of climb the rocks. And I'm thinking, yeah, I got the advantage. I got long limbs, so it'll be easier for me to reach stuff and grab stuff, and then I can pull my body weight up pretty easily. So I'm thinking, yeah, this is a piece of cake. So this would be a nice little breeze. And well, I started climbing, and when I got a few feet off, not a few, it dawned on me that I'm a little bit afraid of heights. Somehow I forgot, between the last time I went rock climbing and last week, yeah, I forgot that I was a little bit afraid of heights. And I looked down like, whew. Okay, let's do this thing. Again, this is indoor rock climbing, very controlled environment. So when it was time to actually do the rock climbing, they had this one part of the wall where it go up, and then when it get to this point, like it kind of come out some. And I climbed up and I got to the up part, but when it do the whole overextension thing, I looked at it and I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. Like, nah, like my feet gonna just where my feet gonna be. So I just kind of climbed back down. And usually, like, they have the system where you're harnessed in the system and you're supposed to kind of just drop down. But I wasn't having that. Like, I climbed down, because I wanted to be in control. Or the fact that I didn't have that control just left me in an uncomfortable position. So to make myself comfortable, I just climbed down rather than doing the whole drop down and the whole Mission Impossible. So the first rock that I decided to climb was a bit of a failure, because it got to that steep part and it's like, nah, not doing it. It's like, and there was a few things that I learned along the way. Like, I'm not scared of much. Like, I'm usually not moving around and about in fear. I just wasn't cut that way. Like, there's things that I'd be apprehensive about. There's things I wonder about. There's things that I have question about. But oftentimes it's not like deeply rooted in fear. It's like, oh, that's not really how I move. Like, when it came to this rock climbing thing, like being in the air, like, and without full control, there's a bit of fear. And what I found, one of the first lessons that I really want to talk about with this rock climbing is being able to think and strategize and operate while scared, like in a position where fear is present and it's prevalent. Being in the air and being fearful, even though it was irrational fear. I was harnessed in this thing and connected to the lift system where it'll break my fall. It didn't matter. Like, I still was fearful of what was the situation. The rock climbing experience for me, the difficulty was not in the physical aspect of it. But the difficulty for me was all mental. It was all mental. Like it was all in my head. It was me managing through fear. And for me, this may be for most people, I feel like when we're in fear, we don't do our best job thinking. I know for me, when I was, doing my rock climbing and, I knew that fear was in there and that fear was creeping in, I tend to get very myopic, like tunnel vision. See one thing, I'm trying to, I see my goal, which is to get to the top, and that's all I see. And I'm thinking, okay, how do I get to the top? How do I get to the top? And I'm looking up because I'm thinking, okay, whatever you do, don't look down. Because, it was times where I'd be in the air, I look down, I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't have done that. And so mentally, I was in a space where it's like, okay, I'm going after my goal. And I'm generally very determined to accomplish the goals that I set after. So I'm going after my goal, and sometimes we get tunnel vision, or I know sometimes I get tunnel vision on my goal, but sometimes that can be to a danger. If we are so focused on the goal, we're missing opportunities that could get us closer to the goal in a more efficient, faster, or better way. And I had a revelation at one point while I was rock climbing, and that revelation was, wait a second, my legs. I have strong legs, and I have 4 limbs, not just 2. So while I'm looking up, I'm constantly looking at where I can put my hands. It's like, okay, where can my hand go next? Okay, where can my hand go next? How can I pull myself up? What can I reach to pull myself up? And that was primarily where my thoughts were, because I was just looking up and I wasn't looking, to the side. I definitely wasn't looking down. And that for me was like, boom, that was huge. That's like a breakthrough moment. It's like, okay, in times of fear, sometimes I get a bit, and this may be a people thing, I don't know, but it's definitely a me thing. Because we get into that fight or flight mode. And in that fight or flight mode, I don't know if we do our best job thinking unless we've trained ourselves to. I ain't trained myself to do that. And I guess in the rock climbing situation, there's probably other situations where I'm more practiced and more trained in it, but in the rock climbing situation, not trained to do it. And it kind of sparked my thoughts into, and it kind of just made me realize that, okay, that's the thing. And now I can be more conscious, like when there's like a strong emotion involved, and it doesn't have to be fear, but now it has me thinking, okay, when there's strong emotion involved, how am I relaxing myself to think about the bigger picture, and am I doing that? And so back to my rock climbing. So I had the revelation, and it was like, oh man, I have very strong legs. And instead of trying to get my hand there, which is kind of far out and, tough to get to, if I just put my foot here, and if I reach, get my leg higher, I can just kind of stand up, and that will be a heck of a lot easier to reach, and I'm exerting less energy. When I had that revelation, it was huge. I was kind of geeked. That was a change, a game changer for me. So it's like, okay, instead of being afraid to look down, now I have to look down, because I know if I look down, it opens up a world of other opportunities that will make my life easier in terms of this rock climbing. And so that was like my first like big aha moment. And it was like, okay, that's when I started to build up a little confidence. And so I started moving my legs more. And still, of course, not forgetting about my hands, but just adding an extra tool to the toolbox. So that was that part I really enjoyed. That second aha moment for me was the fact that I found that sometimes you have to go down in order to go up. And it might seem crazy, and it might seem tough, and it might not seem like the best thing to do. Because like if I'm trying to get to the top of this wall, why would I go down? Like why would I choose to go down if I'm trying to get to the top of the wall? Now, we've always talked about pivoting. And sometimes you gotta pivot backwards in order to find the space that you need and the tools and the resources and the things that you need to get to your destination. And that was a huge moment for me as well. Because so I got the legs thing down, so it's like, okay, now I'm using my legs. But then I got to a point while I was climbing this rock, and again, this fear is still here. Like, just because I got my legs and I'm able to look down, like I'm able to look down at my legs in the different fake rock positions, but like knowing that I was suspended in the air, and that there was a lot of distance between me and the ground. That's very uncomfortable for me still. So even though I was able to look down at my feet and use my legs and everything, like there was still fear there. Like I wasn't void of fear at that point, just because I learned that okay, I need to use my legs, and I can look down at my legs, and I'm fine with that now. So I still got this fear while in the air, and I added this new tool, or this new discovery, that aha moment. I was able to incorporate my legs more. But then I hit a certain spot in the wall, and I couldn't. It's tough for me to find where to go. And then as I'm looking down, so I have that tool in my toolbox where I can have more vision on things. I'm not so myopic in my approach. So I'm looking down, I'm looking around to the left, to the right. And as I look I can't remember if it was to the left or to the right, but I see a pathway that I can take, but it's shifted, to the left or right. I can't remember which one, but it's shifted to the left or right. And it would have been very difficult. Like I would have had to do like a leap and hold on to the rock and swing a little bit. Like I wasn't, I'm in the air, and I wasn't trying to do all that. Like I need, if I don't have 2 feet on the ground, I would like to have 3 limbs on this wall at least. Ideally 4, but 2, 3, 3. I'd be fine with 3, but that's where my limitation was. So I wasn't gonna leap up and grab onto the rock and hold myself with one arm or anything. Even though physically I would be fine doing it, but mentally, not a chance. So I saw a route, and it's like, okay, in order for me to get there, I gotta climb down a little bit, shift myself to whichever side, and then proceed to climb back up. And sometimes that's just what we have to do. And that was a huge aha moment. And it really took me back to my last job, and knowing when I had to step away from my last job, and that was working with the schools. And I just knew where I wanted to be, where I wanted to get, like my goal. And I got to a point where I started to believe that in order for me to get there, I have to let go of my job and let go of the, some of the things that I was very involved in and that I truly did love, but it just wasn't getting me to where I needed to be. And, against everyone's advice, it's like, you don't quit a job without having one lined up. Against everyone's advice, I had to quit, what a lot of people would have called a good job. Like, and it was a good job. Like, in many senses, it was a good job. But I had to take that step back in order to get to where I needed to be. And understanding that, taking that step back Like you still, you're gonna have to put in more effort and more power because you had to go back. However, you're stepping back and you're going on this new path, having learned the things that you've learned already. So I'm stepping back, going on this new path, and still incorporating the tools that I've learned throughout the journey. So in that, like it gives you an opportunity to get to where you're going in a faster, more efficient way. At least that's my belief. And that's how it worked on this wall as well. So me taking that step back, it didn't, I didn't fall. Like I was able to, in a very controlled way, just based on the things that I've learned in the journey, in a very controlled way, I was able to go down, shift over, and then proceed to climb up. And eventually reach the top of that thing. And when I first reached the top of the wall, because I did 3 different walls, and I did them backwards. I found that out at the end. I did them backwards. So there's a wall that had the up, and then it came out. I tried that one first. Don't know why, but I thought I could do it. I was feeling a little confident, I've done rock climbing before, 15 years ago. I was like, yeah, I got this. Then I got to that stick out part, and it's like, nah. Then I did a second wall where it's like, it goes up and then it sticks out just a little bit. And I get to that stick out part, and it's like, I think I'm good here. I'm gonna climb myself down. And then by that point, I did get comfortable with the whole Mission Impossible dropping down the rock thing. But then on the third wall was straight up. Should have done it first. So the third wall, I got high, like to a good spot. And it was above like the other 2 spots that I've gotten. And like I was about to call it done. And this is going into my third point. I was about to call it quits. And I'm like, oh shoot, I ain't gonna make it. I've made it this far. I've got my new techniques using my legs, going down to go up, I'm using that. And then I just get to a certain spot and, I would just realize how high in the air I was, and that fear started to creep back in. But then also, the other side of that is I realized how close I was to the goal. And it's like, nah, I can't quit now. And it did get a little difficult at the top, but it's like, nah, I can't quit now. And I went ahead and pushed through, and I got like 1 rock below the final rock, and I was thinking, yeah, this is good enough for me. But then I had some encouragement to just push me just that little bit that I needed to actually, go ahead and get that last notch. And like I thought I would have been fine just staying like a notch or 2 under that last one, because they were literally like, if this is 1 notch, the last one is right here, or it's a little further out. And it's probably separated about, maybe in vertically height, maybe a foot. So it wasn't, they weren't that far off. But then I went ahead and grabbed that last rock, and then it felt good. So I grabbed both hands, to be on that top spot of the wall, and man, like it felt good. Like I felt like I did it. Like it's like, yeah, this is what success feels like. And I really did feel good, and it leads me to my third takeaway point, which is, and I've always, and I've gotten this from a friend of mine, ride the wave. You have to ride the wave. And this was the last rock climb that I did for the day, and I had all this energy. And I was ready to, go back on the ones that I didn't go all the way up on, the ones that, had that mental challenge of, that tilt, that mental challenge with that tilt it made me want to go back on those because like, man, because the straight one was actually the tallest one. It's like, man, I made it up that one. I definitely could make it up those two. So it gave me this extra boost of energy that I really should have had, approaching the more mentally difficult ones. Problem is I didn't understand how mentally challenging it would be when I got to those points until I did. I was thinking that the rock climbing game would be just the physical component, and I felt like I was equipped and prepared for the physical, but it's that mental that I wasn't prepared for. And having succeeded on the tall wall, it gave me the strength that I probably needed to fight through some of the mental, just a bit of the mental. So now it's a matter of, okay, the height isn't a problem. Even though I haven't gotten over the whole tilt, still haven't. I'll be there again, and I'll let you know how it goes. But knowing that I got one thing that I've accomplished, and I can say, yeah, I've done something like this before. It's a little different, but I've done something like it before, and I made it through, and I kicked ass at it. That gives you that strength and that confidence that you need. And when you have that strength and confidence, it's contagious, and it builds off of itself. So not only do you inspire the people around you, but you also inspire yourself to go even further. And that's the wave. So when my buddy said, we uttered those prophetic words, ride the wave, that's it. Like, and when you're on that wave isn't just for you. That wave is for everybody around you. Like greatness is contagious. Greatness is lighting a fire. It's not filling the bucket. Because when a fire is lit, it lights up the whole room. And when the room is lit, like, people gravitate towards it. Like, oh man, there's something going on over here. I like the energy over here. It's warm over here. And people gravitate to that, and they try to mimic it in their own way. So they don't mimic it, or I don't know, maybe some people do, but they'll mimic it in their own ways. It's like, that person shining, let me shine. And that's where that energy is contagious, and that's when you get those sweet spots, and that's when you think things start to take off. And man, that lesson came back to me, as I was rock climbing. Who would have thought? Now I'm here to share the story, and now I'm here to share, the findings from it. So I'm gonna recap the three lessons that I've learned rock climbing. One is that when you're feeling an intense emotion, whether it's fear or something, just be mindful of, how aware you are to yourself and your environment. Because I know with the rock climbing, I was very myopic in my approach, and it held me back. I was only looking up. I was scared to look down. I didn't want to look down. I was thinking that, if I'm focusing on my goal is up there. So, how am I going to get to my goal? And I'm just looking up. So be mindful of where you are in terms of awareness and full awareness. So it's not just looking up, but it's like, what are the tools and resources that you have around you at your disposal that you can leverage? And, it will require you to move your head. It'll require you to move, take action. Like, I would not have done it like this. Even with my long limbs, even with, my upper body strength, it would have been impossible, or very unnecessarily difficult, but likely impossible. So that's one. Be aware. I guess that's the easy way to say it. So when you're in heightened, and when you're in situations where emotions might be heightened, really tap in and see how aware you are of things. I don't know. be aware. Try to be aware. Be mindful of how aware you are of things. I don't know. I have to word that. So thing two is sometimes you have to go down in order to go up. Sometimes you got to take that step back in order to grow. And keep in mind that, you got new tools in your toolbox. Keep in mind you have new tools in your toolbox. You have different and better understanding. So everything that you've learned in your journey so far, you can use those things, after you kind of take that step back, to propel you a lot faster, a lot more efficiently, and I guess in a lot more strategic way. Third thing is ride the wave. And with that riding the wave is, you don't jump on a huge wave at jump. You start off, you take your steps. Waves happen in steps over time. Like you see, it builds up. And when you build up with that wave, it eventually turns into that big wave. You ride that thing. Yep. Ride the wave. Bring others along with you. And keep pushing yourself and pushing those around you. And success will find you. Now, when you're doing the right thing, success finds you. You don't have to find it. So again, join me on this journey. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on LinkedIn. What's that? WordPress. Whatever else. Yeah, just join me on this journey. Peace.